Putting together a presentation is more than a series of slides. It's
How are you taking them on a journey? People love to be on journeys.
If you don't love yourself and love your story, you will never be able to tell it effectively.
Hi everyone, I'm Mike Teixeira, your host for the No Fear Presenting podcast. When crafting a presentation, we give a lot of consideration to emotions. During outlining, we're thinking about what the audience needs. During the design phase, we're thinking about the emotional impact that our visuals have. And during rehearsal, I'm constantly encouraging my clients to think about curiosity and reading the room. Well, in the past, these have all been considered soft skills, and I can remember them actually being looked down upon in the past. But it seems that over the past decade, there's been a growing appreciation of feelings in the workplace. In fact, a study on LinkedIn revealed that 92% of employers actually consider soft skills equally or more important than technical skills. So, what's happening and where is it going? My next guest is a distinguished university professor and David Bruce Smith Chair in Marketing at the Robert H. Smith School of Business at the University of Maryland, where he is a founder and executive director of the Center for Excellence in Service. But on top of that, he also is an author, and he has co-authored a book titled The Feeling Economy: How Artificial Intelligence is Creating the Era of Empathy. And that's what I'd like to dig in today with my guest. Welcome, Professor Rust. Thanks for being here. How are you? Where are you joining us from?
Joining from Bethesda, Maryland, in the D.C. area.
We're getting a little covering of snow here in New Hampshire. How's it look over there?
No snow yet. Winter's come late in the last 3 years.
Oh, yeah, later and later, it seems. Well, I'd like to dig in a little bit, learn a little about your origin story here. You're a professor in business marketing. Curious what your journey was, your academic journey was to get you to that discipline.
Yeah, well, my academic journey was a little bit complicated. I started out in mathematics, actually.
What? Really? Wow.
Yeah, and I was in a PhD program in mathematics at Indiana, and discovered that I was really gravitating more toward the practical side, things like probability and statistics. So at that point, I decided I would go into business instead. So I applied to the MBA program at North Carolina, got in, and then went from there to the PhD program at North Carolina in marketing, and then went to the University of Texas at Austin for my first job, and then to Vanderbilt University as the head of the department there and chaired professor, and then to Maryland as chaired professor and head of the department. So, so I'm not head of the department anymore. I did that for 8 years. That's enough.
Okay.
But I'm still at Maryland and working hard.
Yeah, and I saw somewhere in your bio former athlete too, huh?
That's true. Yes, I'm actually in my university's athletic hall of fame.
Oh wow, great! For what record?
I set 12 school records when I was in college.
You underachiever, jeez.
But yeah, it was in track and cross country.
Nice. All right. So as you grew up, this is a podcast about public speaking, storytelling, presentations. I'm always curious to find out who were your role models for telling stories. Was there any in your background as you grew up?
That's an interesting one. I think one of the best storytellers that I can remember was my high school cross country and track coach,
Well, there you
Charlie
go.
Riley. He was an Irishman, and Irishmen love to talk.
Yeah.
And he would get the team, and we would do a warm up, and then we would sit down on the grass, and we'd get completely cold, from not being still moving. But he would give these long talks.
Yeah.
And it was just an unbelievable motivator.
Oh, wow.
And so, for example, when we went to the state championship my senior year, we were seated last place, and yet he motivated us to go run over our heads, and we ended up winning the whole thing.
What?
which
That's
was,
like a movie
yeah,
coach. That's wonderful. What?
yeah. I mean, out of 16 teams, we were seated last, and
Wow.
we won the thing.
Wow.
It was unbelievable.
And what kind of things did he tell you? What kind of lectures was he giving you that motivated you like that?
Yeah, mostly it was just trying to get us to believe in ourselves and try to believe that we could really do it and that we had the ability, and giving us the idea that wanting to do it and really putting the effort in to do it was going to make us successful.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that really set me up for my entire career because at that point I realized, after co-captaining the state championship team, I realized, I could do anything.
Yeah.
If all I have to do is put the work in and have a plan and follow the plan. And even though you don't get results immediately, over time it does produce results.
Wow, that's a great lead into the topic of your book. I mean, through feeling, he motivated you to succeed, and it wasn't just in athletics, it also lended over to the business world, which I suspect when I
Yeah.
was listening to your book, a thought that kept going through my head was it's always been there, but it wasn't appreciated, and it wasn't seen as a way to excel. It was just happenstance that the guy who was a great storyteller could also be a good leader. And now it's kind of being pushed to the front. But that's my speculation. Tell me what inspired you to write this book.
Well, my wife Ming-Hui Huang and I have been doing research together for a long time on technology related issues. And of course, as AI became more important, we moved more and more into AI, and we're among the first people in our field to be working on AI. So, the idea that we were working on AI, then she had this wonderful insight that really there are multiple intelligences related to AI. There's physical or mechanical intelligence, there's thinking intelligence, and there's feeling intelligence.
Good.
And that's the order of development for AI, basically. The first thing that AI did was it tried to automate and mechanize repetitive things.
Right,
And,
right.
and
Like
that
that's the
was the first
mechanical
thing.
arms in the factories, right?
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, you go to a car factory now and you don't see people, you see machines.
Yeah,
And maybe occasionally you see a person who's trying to take care of the machines.
right.
But that's about it. Then you have the thinking intelligence, which is next, and that is something that is now being taken over by AI. Now, the funny thing is, the companies will never tell you that that's happening
Right.
because they don't want people to be scared. They
Yeah.
don't want their workforce to be scared. They don't want to say, "Hey, we're going to cut a bunch of our jobs and replace them with AI."
Mhm.
That would scare the hell out of everybody.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so they don't say that. But if you take a look at a graph of layoffs for managers, and you take a look at that over time, it kind of bumps along at a certain level until about November of 2022. You know what happened in November 2022?
AI was introduced.
That was when ChatGPT came out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, and at that point, suddenly the layoffs, boom, start
Oh,
going way up.
gotcha.
So
Yeah.
that tells you what's going on.
Yeah.
Basically, a bunch of companies are saying, there are a lot of people out there that do analysis and write reports. Well,
Do we need them?
AI can do that. Large language models can do that.
Right.
So you have to ask yourself, what is it that people can do right now better than AI can do? And right now, that really is the feeling side.
Hmm.
And so that's where people need to head if they want to be safe. Now, they're not safe in the long term, even doing that. But in the short term or in perhaps intermediate term, that's still the way to win,
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
to be more on the feeling side.
So that was from your inspiration, kind of led over to the broad strokes of the book, which was perfect mind reading on your part. That's exactly where I wanted to go. The book really takes you through that idea that we started off in the physical economy, moved to the thinking economy, and you guys do a great job at painting that picture. And the kinds of workers that were good in the physical economy and then how they were phased out or moved along to the thinking economy. Now you're asking us to look forward and see where we're going next, which is really machines and automation, AI, taking the thinking and the physical and leaving us this little oasis of the feeling space. Is that basically?
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. So I tell my students, hey, go into a job that's people facing, because that's where the opportunity is.
Yeah.
Anything that's like a geek job, programming or STEM stuff, analysis, AI is going to be better than people at that, and rather quickly. In fact, already AI is doing a lot of the computer programming, et cetera. I'm teaching an honors course right now in AI in the university honors program here. And I will give you an approximate percentage of the students who are actively using AI to produce their work.
Go for it.
100%.
I know. And it's not surprising, but it's also part of what has happened since November of 2022, where AI has become an add-on to almost any app, any software, any phone that you look at. My oven, I think, has AI now. So it's like, how can you avoid it? And I'm glad you said that part about companies don't want you to know about it, because I feel like when I was listening to the book, my thought that kept recurring in my head is, I wonder what the professor thinks about what's happened since November 2022. I think really fired up the creative storytellers with generative AI coming into the forefront, the Midjourney, ChatGPT's idea of launching Sora to create video. I think the people who can now tell really good stories and really voice concern have started saying, wait a minute, what are we doing? Yes, you're saying we have room in the feeling economy, but creating art is creating feelings. So do we really, and how do we get ready really for this new future?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. And certainly it's true that AI is taking over more and more of these thinking tasks. And of course, what AI is working on now, what I'm working on personally, is how to take AI into the feeling realm too.
Right. Yeah.
But that's
how so? Explain that a little bit.
Well, for example, our latest publication in the Journal of Marketing, which was the lead article, was called The Caring Machine, Feeling AI for Customer Care. It was basically what needs to happen to make AI successfully deal with customer relationships and build those and make them stronger. And that's where we're headed. It's not very far along yet.
Yeah.
But certainly the thinking AI is really far along. Yeah, I really don't have the students do a lot of things that I think they're not going to use in their real life in the future. So, for example, I don't have them do a lot of data analysis. I've talked to people who do data analysis for their living, and they say, oh, I don't really do the technical stuff anymore. I put that with the AI, and I just do the customer contact stuff. And I try to take care of the customer. So that's where things are headed. So I don't have the students do analysis. I don't even have them do writing, because AI is going to do the writing. AI is going to, a lot of the typical reports that are done in business, that's all going to be automated, and it's going to be done by AI.
Yeah.
So, but what will be remaining is presentations. So I have the students do presentations all semester.
Yeah.
And that's really the most important part of the course. And of course, then they go
off. Just if I could interrupt you, Professor, that's why I reached out to you, because I have been, I'm a tech geek and an artist, and I love keeping up with technology. And when I really started paying attention to AI, I said, well, this is the soft skills that my company teaches on a regular basis. This is how to connect with audience. How do you stand in front of people and listen to exactly what their problems are and process that, and then reply in a human connected way. So I think that, and correct me if I'm wrong, companies focusing on presentation skills or public speaking skills and really training their workforce on that, the people maybe traditionally they didn't even think they needed to focus on that is a good way to prepare them for the feeling economy. What do you think about that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I decided right up front that presentations were key to business success in the future, and I needed to have the students practice with that. And the other thing that they do is they do that in groups, because
Oh,
that's how
nice.
business works.
Absolutely.
Business works in teams.
Yeah.
And so I have everybody in teams.
Nice.
And I don't say, hey, form your own teams, because then it's going to be whoever's in their fraternity or whatever is going to be on the team,
Right.
or whoever is in their sorority. So instead, and we have a very diverse student base here at the University of Maryland.
Mm.
I have the groups all assigned randomly. So people get stuck together with people they would never have chosen to be dealing with. But that's the way the world is.
That's beautiful. That's exactly right. And that's, like you say, in the future, they're going to have to negotiate with their coworkers and have that battle of ideas to see whose ideas actually resonate and makes the most sense for whatever business problem they're trying to solve. So that's great that they get that practice. And how are they responding to that?
Well, I think they've done a great job. I've been really impressed with the quality of the work that they've done. I think they've taken it very seriously. And as I say, they use AI flat out to help them on just about everything. And
Yeah.
I said pretty much the first day of the semester, I said, hey, I don't care if you use AI. I hope you use AI. People who succeed in the future are going to be people who collaborate with AI.
Right.
So go ahead and use it. I just want to know that you used it. Let me know how you used it. And that's fine. And then they do that. And it's assumed that
Right.
they'll do whatever they can with AI to help them out.
Yeah. Yeah. So, how do you have the discussion about the balancing act about how to use AI? Because I've had conversation with creative folks, and the way I approach it is I say, look, you're a brilliant photographer. What you really love is the lighting part of it, posing the bodies. But do you love the bookkeeping? Do you really love the scheduling part of it? Do you really love scheduling out social media posts? I mean, wouldn't it be nice if you could have a virtual assistant that took care of all that in an easier way so you could really focus? That's how I bridge that. Now, if you have a student who really likes to write and you're saying, well, use AI to it, does that person bristle a little? And how do you have that discussion?
Well, usually what you'll have is the AI will write the draft, and then the human will check the draft and make sure it's okay. It
Right.
just speeds things up and makes things a whole lot more efficient.
Yeah. Do you talk about them training models so that it sounds more like them?
No, but we had a guest speaker who was a former head of the Open AI group at IBM,
Oh, nice.
and he was talking about how they deal with AI, and he was talking about setting up multiple digital twins of himself
Yeah.
and others
Hmm.
to be able to come at problems from different angles just using AI.
Yeah.
And we're doing some of that ourselves, in Ming-Hui and I, in our research. We're setting up some of these things where we have different AI agents that each have a different task and they do different things,
Yeah.
and yet they team up to solve a particular problem.
Hmm.
So
Nice.
that's where things are going, I believe.
Now, have you played around? I would imagine you have with the OpenAI voice interface, the conversational interface.
Yeah, we've dealt with really about all of those kinds of interfaces on most of the major LLMs.
I think they're
That
doing a really great job of relaying a sense of feeling. The pauses,
Yeah.
the what do you think?
yeah, I do
Mhm.
think, and that's the natural way for people to communicate. I
Right,
mean, people are not natural typers.
right.
They don't start out as a baby typing. They start out speaking, and that's exactly what AI is wanting to do. Sam Altman said that in no uncertain terms this a couple of years ago. Somebody asked, how are people going to interact with AI? He said that you're going to talk to it,
Yeah,
and that's exactly what's already is happening. They already have that.
right. So while you were writing the book, what was the biggest surprise of yours during your research and writing it? Was there something that really stood out to you?
Yeah. There was a surprise.
Love it.
One thing that we did was we wrote a chapter on emoji. We called it The Age of Emoji.
Well,
Now, you
I
might
bet.
say, why do we have a chapter about emoji in an AI book? Well, here's the reason. My understanding was the reason that would ever occur was that people thought that the communications on the computer were too cold, needed to be warmer,
Right.
more emotional, have more feeling. And then in researching emoji and the emoticons, I discovered that the person who actually created the emoticon was a PhD student at Carnegie Mellon who was thought to have the first PhD in AI. Is
Wow.
that wild?
Yeah. So he was already kind of intuitively saying, how
Oh
do I
yeah,
get that feeling across? And he starts using these combination of keystrokes to make
that's
smiley faces and whatnot.
that's right. Try to warm things up,
That's
make
awesome.
it put more feeling in it because he
Yeah,
could
yeah.
see the coldness happening. Same thing happened in music. You know, there was a German band in the 1970s called Kraftwerk, which was like the first electronic band,
Right.
and the music sounded so cold,
Yeah.
so unbelievably cold. And eventually, what the musicians did was they took this kind of cold synthesizer-driven music and they combined it with very emotional singing to balance it out.
Right. Right.
So that's what a lot of modern popular music is now.
That's really a great metaphor, I think. I just finished that chapter this morning actually, and I was thinking that that is the metaphor for hope for me that yes, AI might be doing a graphic or a report, but then it's on us to balance it out with that human ability to storytell or to relay
Yeah,
emotion and find
and,
creative new ways. And it might not look anything like communication does today.
yeah, and that's what a lot of the AI collaboration looks like now. You have the computer side, which is a little bit colder and more analytical, and then you have the people side, which is warmer and have more feeling oriented.
Yeah,
And that's the way a lot of things are going right now.
yeah,
If you talk to the people who are kind of at the forefront of applying AI, that's how they're talking.
yeah.
That you really need both. It's a collaboration, but ultimately, I believe even the human feeling side will be taken over.
Yeah, yeah. Do you believe that there is a need for us to more actively be talking about guardrails and regulations on AI?
I think it's futile.
Yeah, really.
It's futile because you can't talk about guardrails without having a worldwide set of regulations. And you have to ask yourself, are the Chinese going to hold back on AI because we tell them that maybe they should? I don't think that they are. You know, so even though you have Elon Musk and Jeffrey Hinton and Sam Altman and people like that saying that there ought to be guardrails, really, I think when it comes down to it, it comes down to game theory. And in game theory, the Nash equilibrium, which is the result that should be found, is the one where both sides defect. And in that case, in this particular case, what that means is both sides would not restrict themselves. They would not restrict their development of AI.
Right, right.
So I believe that's where we're headed.
Yeah, yeah. That's sad to hear because I do feel there is a huge inequality, unfairness that's happened, especially for the generative AI visual stuff, where the stuff that is teaching the AI is all this source data made by people and they're not getting compensated for it. And I think back to like when Napster was distributing music for free, it was a horrible experience. And so we found that balance. So now musicians don't get paid much, but Apple made it a better interface. So people were willing to pay some, but not the price of a full album. You know what I mean? That worked
Yeah,
itself out. And I feel like generative AI needs to find that source. And I don't know if it comes from the AI creators and programmers themselves building that into the system, some sort of licensing payback,
yeah. Well,
system.
California tried to do a lot of regulation recently. Tried to really restrict AI quite a bit, and after lobbying by the tech industry, Governor Gavin Newsom vetoed the legislation. And I think we're going to see that really almost everywhere. Europe may be an exception.
Yeah.
Because they are very privacy oriented, and but I think that's just going to mean that they're behind. They're going to
Yeah.
be behind the U.S. and they're going to be behind China.
Right. Right. What a balancing act. So, is your bottom line message get on board and move toward the feeling economy? Is that basically?
I think that's in the short to intermediate term. That's the winning strategy.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
had one student in my honors class I was very proud of. He said, "Well, I was doing a STEM major, but now I decided to change and be a doctor." I thought,
Wow.
okay, well,
Okay.
that's
There you
something
go.
that's not going to go away probably.
Yeah, humans are still going to get sick. Now, okay, so that was a great bit of conversation we had around the surprise during research and then the follow ups on that. But now, after the release of the book, you did release your book before OpenAI's release of ChatGPT. So tell me, what was it? What's been your biggest surprise in what's happened since you and your wife released the book?
Well, the big surprise is how fast everything has moved.
Right.
I think that what Gen AI has done is it basically has just sped things up tremendously. But
Right.
what it's especially sped things up for is the opportunity to do feeling AI.
Mm,
In other words, letting AI get into the stuff that has until now been the pure domain of humans.
yeah.
And that's in fact something that Ming-Hui and I are working on actively.
Yeah.
Is projects that are about how to use feeling AI.
Which a big portion of your book talked a lot about retraining and uptraining. I might not be
Yeah.
using the correct terms, but with the speed of it, that's what I'm concerned. Like, are folks, our companies going to have time, and how can they start
Yeah,
transitioning now?
it's really
Hmm.
a problem. I mean, we look at this as being the second really, really big displacement. The
Right.
first really big displacement was when we went from the mechanical physical economy to the thinking economy.
Right.
We can think about that as happening basically in the 1900s, to
Yeah.
some extent, late 1800s. But what happened in the 1900s was, the society said, hey, we have to prepare people differently. It's not going to be everybody just going out and plowing a field or going to the coal mine or whatever. They're going to have to do thinking jobs. And so what happened during the 1900s was the number of people who went to high school just accelerated tremendously. The number of people who went to college accelerated tremendously. The other
Right.
thing that happened was that women
That's all the
bought
former factory workers saying to their children: "Go be lawyers, go be doctors, go be engineers, because this
Sure,
isn't looking good." Yeah.
that's right. But if you take a look, for example, at someplace like West Virginia, a former coal country,
Right.
the people who kind of stuck around in West Virginia and said, hey, bring the coal mines back or whatever, you know, they're going to lose out in this economy. They have to be retrained to
Yeah.
be thinking workers. But of course, now we're starting to see the second great displacement. And the second great displacement is the thinking workers needing to be retrained to be feeling workers.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So,
I'm worried about the avalanche effect, because you have a whole class of folks who either remember their parents or were factory workers all of a sudden being displaced. And now, swiftly on top of that, the thinking workers are probably going to feel like this. This is already having geopolitical implications in the way elections are the way people are voting and what they're voting for out of a place of anger and resentment.
yeah,
I
that's right.
worry about that a lot.
Well, appropriately so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's one of the main reasons that Trump won in 2016, and one of the main reasons that Trump won again this time
Yeah.
was that he spoke to the physical economy workers who were displaced.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
that's really behind the times, because now we're starting to displace thinking workers.
Right.
But he was looking, where is there a big group of displeased people? That was where the biggest group of displeased people was.
Yeah, easy target to again, the feeling economy, feeling focused. Don't worry about the plans and data behind your argument. Talk to people about how they're feeling, and it has a tremendous
Yeah,
results for the
I,
positive and the negative. Right?
yeah, and I think Trump realized very quickly, it doesn't matter whether what I say is true or not. What matters is whether people feel it.
Right. Right.
And so, I mean, he's definitely the classic feeling economy politician is he's kind of thrown out the thinking side. I mean, Hillary Clinton would have been president in 2016 if thinking was all that mattered.
Right, right. And so, given that's the case, I'm very heartened that there are people like you who are focusing on, okay, so how do we do well by doing good? You have a organization that focuses on that. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, the center. You're talking about the center.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that was really created. I mean, the reason I went into service in the first place was I wanted to do something for customers.
Mm-hmm.
I'd been doing a lot of work on advertising media scheduling before that.
Right.
And, I'm making money for companies. And I said, well, I want to do something for customers too, people, regular people. So the first thing I did was I focused on proving to businesses that satisfying customers actually made them money. Because, CEOs aren't going to do anything that doesn't make them money.
Right.
They're not going to please customers just because that's a nice thing to do.
Yeah.
They're going to. So I wrote this book called Return on Quality, which was exactly that. In fact, it got a lot of attention. Actually, one of the few marketing academics ever to have their graphs shown on the national news.
Oh, wow.
On ABC World News Tonight, they showed my graphs.
Oh, nice.
And then Business Week did a cover story on return on quality.
Yeah.
So
what I find fascinating about that is that as a CEO of a company, it's easy to think, okay, well, we got to make more profit, so let's trim a millimeter off the outer diameter of whatever product we have, make it a little more flimsy, like cut, get a slightly lower quality ingredient. But
that's been done.
Yeah. It's the immediate impulse. Cut costs. Where can we cut costs? But what you're trying to counterbalance and demonstrate is that the more you do that, satisfaction goes down. So how do you make that argument to businesses that say you got to keep these things in balance?
Yeah, the original people that were trying to figure out the profitability of quality were doing it totally from the cost side, exactly the way you're talking about.
Right.
And so what I had to do was I said, no, let's also look at the revenue side. Let's show that you can actually increase revenues from this. Mm-hmm. And then balance that against the cost that's required to get that, and it produces a return on investment. So I created a company that marketed this to a whole bunch of Fortune 500 companies all around the world.
Nice.
So yeah, the idea is just let's prove to people that you actually get a return on investment.
Yeah, I don't know if you can name names, but can you tell us a specific example of a company that's doing this well, transitioning from the cost-focused, maybe more thinking economy way of looking at things, and they're transitioning to the feeling, more quality? Do you have a specific story to tell us about someone doing that well?
Oh, there could be a whole lot of them. Certainly, some of the companies that I've worked with most closely, companies like Unilever, IBM, MasterCard, Comcast, companies like that. The smart ones are taking a look at this from the revenue side as well as the cost side. So, for example, if you have a hotel, I was working a lot with a hotel chain,
mm-hmm.
a major hotel chain, and if you have a hotel chain and you're trying to do something like have amenities, like you put bottled water in the room,
right?
You might say, well, that costs something, right? Every time you do that, it costs you something. So then you have to ask yourself, do we get the money back? And so what we did was we took a look at the long-term longitudinal effects of using amenities in the room, and then compared that to the price of actually creating the amenity. And we were able to show that in many cases you get an unbelievably high return on investment, sometimes in the thousands of percent. Some things that are just no-brainers, like the bottled water in the room is a no-brainer. Some other things like swimming pools or whatever, it's going to take longer to pay that off because there's a huge capital investment.
Okay, so now if you're thinking about, we got a short window of time to get people ready to transition to the feeling economy because technology's moving at an ever more accelerated rate, is there a couple of key insights that you would offer to business leaders to get their companies moving in the right direction?
Well, I think the first thing is retraining. Businesses need to get very serious about retraining because a lot of their workforce are going to be thinking workers who are about to be displaced. They
Right.
need to be upskilled in the feeling skills, and the people facing skills. So that's really important. And universities, of course, need to think that way too. They need to say, okay, how can we build continuing education that actually creates this opportunity for thinking economy workers? So I think those things. But then the other thing that the corporations need to think about is how can we build new jobs that are thinking or that are feeling oriented jobs. Some of the jobs that already exist, I mean, they may have some thinking tasks, they may have some physical tasks, they may have some feeling tasks, but the thinking tasks are rapidly going away. So what ends up happening is the existing jobs get transformed. They become more feeling oriented.
Mm.
But then the new jobs that are coming along are going to be mostly feeling oriented jobs because that's where the growth is.
Okay, so that's some good tips, I think, for leaders out there. Now, I'd like to talk to you about a little bit of a dicey area that you got into the book, and I'm glad your co-author was a woman because I think it gave a nice balanced perspective. But in the book, you talk a lot about how women are going to be uniquely suited for this new future of the feeling economy. I was like, whoa, that's dicey because now you're making the stereotypical assumption that females are more caring and feeling. So how did you thread that needle, and did
Um,
you debate that at all?
the scientific research actually bears that out. I had a bet that I made with another professor, a woman professor, about 30 years ago, and I bet that it would be found that the male brain is wired differently from the female brain on average. That there would be gender differences in how the brain functions. And she said, no, it won't happen. About 10 years ago, she conceded the bet because she could see that the scientific literature showed that clearly it is the case that men and women are wired a little bit differently. Men
Yeah,
are a little bit more specialized hemispherically, and women are a little bit more empathetic and have a little bit more of those abilities. So if you take a look at that in terms of the three great displacements, in the physical economy, it was the big, strong man who was in charge, and all the societies were patriarchal, basically, at
yeah,
that time. And women stayed at home, probably, and men went out and did the hard work. Then during the thinking economy, women started to catch up
yeah.
because women started to go to college, they started to go to high school. They started to catch up because women are just as smart as men are, basically, in thinking. Um, and in fact, if you look now at what's happening, there are more women college graduates than there are men in the United
Right.
States.
Yeah, I saw that stat.
So I mean, women have caught up.
Yeah,
And one of the reasons that they've even maybe a little bit more than just caught up is this move to the feeling economy. With the feeling
right.
economy skills becoming more important, this starts to give females the edge.
Yeah,
So what we anticipate is in the feeling economy, the women will be the ones that are on top. And if you take a look at, for example, the countries that have a woman leader as the leader of their country, those countries are much higher GDP per capita than average.
I've
So
said this
that
to
kind
my
of tells
wife.
you
I've
something.
pointed this out. We've had this debate in my kitchen. I'm like, look at what's happening. We need a woman president. We need to transition this country. I feel like the future is not only a feeling future, it's also a female future. And yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
very good, awesome. Are there any other thoughts or insights you have for leaders of the type of people or traits of people within their current um, workforce that they should
Well,
be highlighting
um,
or encouraging?
stop hiring for STEM skills.
Yeah,
I mean, if you take a look at I mean, one thing that we've seen in the last couple of years is that the people who are doing STEM education are having a much tougher time getting a job. And this is exactly what we predicted in the book. So yeah, that would be one thing. Let's put less focus on the STEM skills and put a lot more focus on the people skills that are going to be really necessary. There will still, of course, need to be some people that do STEM, because some people need to do things like invent the new AI algorithms and all that. But basically, that's the very, very top of the line people that are doing that. Yeah. The person who used to get a job as an actuary and calculate stuff all day, they're out of a job.
Yeah.
There's no way that AI is going to take that over.
And in the book, you'd mentioned the cross training, and I think that that's a vital point. Will you talk a little bit about that, especially during this phase of transition where you can stay an accountant, you can stay an engineer, but if you're not great with people skills, maybe it's time to really...
Yeah, that's right. And those are the people that are in the greatest danger right now, the people who are very smart analytically and don't have good people skills. They are in real trouble and need to get their people skills in order. I have a good friend who worked for IBM for many years it started out as a computer simulation person, doing very, very technical stuff.
Right.
And then over time, she moved into management, which was the smart move. That's what technical people should all try to do if they're capable.
Right.
Is to move into a more managerial job where you have more people responsibilities.
Right.
So that's what she did, and it was a wonderful career move.
Yeah, and I think that it's time to start having a conversation about what that word management really means. It's not knowing how to tell people technically how to do the job. It's knowing how to work with people, to encourage them to work like your coach did. He knew the technical aspects of running, but it was those motivational talks that really took you from the last seat, through the ranks. So you work with a lot of companies. You've advised many companies. Do you think right now companies are focused on the right thing, or is there a shift on stuff they should start focusing on? I think we've touched on it, but I just want to ask.
Yeah, I think what companies are all saying right now is, hey, look, this AI is going to really take a lot of these tasks away that people already do. Yeah. Therefore, we're not going to need as big a headcount. Mm-hmm. So, for example, recently Marriott, which is headquartered in Bethesda here, Marriott Corporation laid off almost 1,000 managers. And the reason they did that, I'm sure, is that they looked at the large language models and AI, and they said, a lot of these tasks that people do are going to be taken over. Yeah. And so we have to think about what's the proper headcount for our company. It's going to be a lot smaller than it was before. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be true all over the economy. And in fact, the data bear that out. We're seeing that. The change since late 2022 has been remarkable. There have been an incredible wave of layoffs. It started in the tech industry. And of course, that makes sense because the tech industry is the first to really pick up on AI.
Good points. Now that's how companies should think about the current workers and what to focus on to transition us. But you touch on in the book how education is going to have to change. I would imagine primarily to start considering the future generations. So talk to me about your viewpoints on that. How is education going to have to change to adapt to a feeling economy?
Yeah, well, it's the similar thing. For example, the University of Maryland is very STEM focused. The sciences are very good here. Sciences, mathematics, physics, computer science, all those things are very strong at Maryland. So I sent a copy of the book to the provost. I said, please take a look at the How Education Must Change chapter.
you put a little bookmark in that section?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But, they don't want to hear that because that they would have to completely turn their organization around to be able to adapt to this. So
could you list the key concepts of change that they should consider?
Well, they need to realize that STEM is going to be on the way out. They're not going to have as much demand for that. And so that's the concern. And it changes the way people are going to need to teach, too. I mean, you're not going to be able to assign papers As people just give it to ChatGPT to write. It's already been demonstrated that ChatGPT and other large language models can get good grades at good schools.
Yeah.
In classes.
Yeah.
And I would say, to the extent that that's true, you're teaching the wrong things, because you're teaching stuff that AI is going to be better at.
Right.
So, if your class is something that AI can pass, you're teaching the wrong class.
Good point. Sometimes I look at TikTok or Instagram Reels, and I have the thought that maybe education doesn't realize they're actually competing with these platforms. I follow some TikTok folks who are brilliant presentation designers, and I'm learning. You know what I'm saying? And that person is sharing their information. They're doing it in an engaging visual way. So how do you think education should learn to collaborate with the independent teachers or the independent channels, social media, for example?
Yeah, the media environment. I started out in media, so
Right.
My first book was about media, so I'm really into that. And clearly, the media environment has completely changed. And in fact, if you take a look across generations, how the generations use media is completely different.
Mhm.
So, for example, my generation, I'll watch cable TV, right?
Right.
None of the kids watch cable TV.
No.
They're all on social media, and that's it.
It's on-demand social media. Yep. What do I need?
Yeah.
Do a quick search. Yeah. I also think I have she just turned 15, a 15-year-old. And I think about the way she's taught, because I'm a presentation coach and designer. I think about the way she's taught to use Google Slides in the classroom. And she is taught to basically put her whole report on Google Slides and turn away from the classroom and read the report. So So I say, well, not only does my daughter have to do it differently because I'm going to force her to do it, but I wonder, like, how are we going to get into the classrooms and encourage teachers to start thinking about presentations and the vital linchpin that really is, because it's the way you communicate.
I've had that come up 2 or 3 times this semester. A group gets into a presentation and somebody is obviously reading their stuff.
Right.
And at that point, I interrupt and I say, "Excuse me, I think you're reading your slide." I said, "You should not read your slide. You can use notes to refer to, but then speak in a normal way."
Yeah. Good. I'm glad you're doing that. That's awesome. I used to have a teacher in college who would, if we were doing that, they would start reading out loud on top of us. And so he would be reading, you would be trying to say something, and the cacophony of sounds would drown out all the points. And he'd say, that is what you're doing to your audience, because they're reading behind your back, and then they're hearing your voice, and then they're not retaining anything. So, yeah, I'm glad you're stopping them. It's vital to start training folks how to present properly. Now, what's your relationship with public speaking and presentations? How much of a part of your life is it? How have you grown as a communicator?
Yeah, actually, when I was younger, I had a terrible stuttering and stammering problem and could hardly get in front of a group of 20 people and say anything. It was amazing. Sometimes I would get a phone call. If it was somebody important on the phone call, I wouldn't even be able to talk to them. I'd be I wouldn't be able to do it. So I had to really work on getting better at that. And now I can get in front of, hundreds of people or thousands of people, and it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But
all 3 people who listen to this podcast, look at you.
But that's something that I've had to work on. And one thing that I did that was helpful to me, maybe it'd be helpful to some people that get upset when they're speaking, is I've done meditation for practically my entire life since college.
Oh, really?
I meditate twice a day.
Nice.
And that gives me more of a mindfulness about how my mind works, and gives me more ability to relax when I want to relax. It makes me more conscious of how my brain works and the control that I can have over it.
Okay. And is there a certain discipline of meditation that you follow or practice?
Well, the one I use is transcendental meditation.
Yeah.
And again, I've been doing that since college.
Yeah, I've heard that over and
twice
over
a day,
again. Yeah,
twice a
yeah.
day, every day.
Nice, nice. Well, that's a wonderful tip for the audience. So hopefully that'll help somebody find their center and be able to calm down when they're talking. Do you think there's a danger of society becoming too feeling focused?
Well, yes. I mean, there's a trade-off there
Right.
because as you become more feeling focused, then you become less thinking focused.
Yeah.
And that means that maybe you'll make decisions that aren't really logical. Maybe you'll make them just based on emotion. I'm concerned that there is a lot of decision making like that going on right now. So I am concerned.
Yeah.
Um,
I think about that a lot when I get in the car and I turn on Waze. I no longer think about the path that I'm taking. I just trust Waze to do it, and I'm
I
listening to the radio and talking. You know what I mean?
I
And
do exactly the same thing with Waze
yeah.
every
So
time.
how do we counterbalance that? That's my focus for the future is
Well, you need to realize that as the thinking skills become less important, people are going to become less good at it. And
right.
that's already happening. I mean, if
Mhm.
I ask students to multiply two numbers together, they probably can't do it.
Right.
But they don't have to do it. They can get their smartphone out of their pocket and they can get the number for you real fast. No big
Yeah.
deal. So it's just
Right.
AI is doing that work and they aren't. So those kinds of skills are just not that important anymore. They need to know how to collaborate with the AI, of course,
Mhm.
but that requires much less technical knowledge.
And how about the resentment out there? I'm hearing a lot of resentment. Again, we have a lot of designers who work for us. We're part of the artistic community. There's a lot of resentment. Do you have some advice? I'm hearing acceptance that this is the way it's going to be. Is there anything that you want to expound on that?
Well, I mean, there are going to be a lot of lost jobs, and that's what people are upset about. So, for example, there was this dock workers strike that was all down the East Coast, and the dock workers are saying we want two things: we want to be paid much more, and we want to have AI not do the unpacking of the boats in the harbors.
Right.
And so, guess what happened? The company said, "Okay, here's your big raise.
Right.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good luck with the other stuff."
Yeah.
Because they can't afford to become less efficient than everybody else. They have to maintain their efficiency, and they do that through AI.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that illustrates a point where this notion of universal income at one point was a pipe dream to now going, well, if folks are provided for, they can spend and then they can back off and relax about automation and mechanics doing their jobs. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah, universal
it's,
basic income is a pretty popular topic among the Silicon Valley crowd
yeah,
because they can see that AI is going to take over a lot of things, and people have to have some sort of safety net. Now, the problem is we're not real good at safety nets.
right.
Um, Rich people don't like safety nets because it causes their taxes to slightly rise.
So what's the solution? We don't know, right? Because this is a big
Well,
topic.
I think my personal opinion,
Yeah, I'd
there
love to.
there's going to be a tremendous amount of income and wealth inequality because the people who control the AI are capitalists, right?
Yeah,
They are the capitalists. That means the money that comes in because of AI is going to the capitalists rather than to labor.
right.
So you've got a shift from labor to capital, and whenever that happens, you have a greater inequality. There's a famous French economist named Thomas Piketty who wrote a wonderful book called Capital in the 21st Century, where he talks about the causes of inequality in relation to what happens with respect to the money going to capital.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. I think the time to be super vigilant and aware and voice our concerns is now. I mean, I think the dock workers is a great example. I mean, if we don't start stopping being part of the system in order to get some folks to negotiate, I think we're all in danger. I read a book recently called The End of Reality. Have you read that book?
I haven't read that one.
Yeah, Jonathan Taplin, an amazing book about how there's 4 billionaires in the world, and they're all kind of getting together to shape society into this AI-run automated new place, and it's not a very pleasant picture. So I feel that there's an argument to be had in a healthy way, to move us all equally forward.
Yeah, I hope so. It has yet to be worked out.
So this is called the No Fear Presenting Podcast. I like to ask my guests, what is one thing that you're afraid of, and how do you overcome it? And it can be broad. Take that question however you want.
Well, without getting too personal, I'll get a little bit personal. I'm afraid that what is going to happen geopolitically is very uncertain right now. How we respond to China, how we respond to Russia, how we respond to Iran, those are just absolutely essential. And I'm worried that the incoming presidential administration just wants to forget about everything. Just let's just jump out of everything. Of course, if that happens, then I think China takes over Taiwan, Russia takes over Ukraine, and then you can't believe that they're going to stop there. I don't think they're going to stop there.
An era of amassing power.
So I actually, one thing I do in my classes is I provide some history, because a lot of students don't know any history. So
Thank you.
One thing that I have talked about is Neville Chamberlain in 1938 meeting with Hitler in Czechoslovakia, where they made a nice deal to give Hitler a lot of Czechoslovakia. Chamberlain flew back to England, waved the paper in people's faces, said, "This is really great. We've ensured peace in our time." And then the next month, Hitler invades the next country.
Right.
So that's one piece of history that I do. The other that I do is the Smoot-Hawley tariffs of 1930, which helped bring on the Great Depression.
Right.
Obviously, Trump is thinking about a tariff regime right now again that could have just catastrophic economic consequences to the whole world.
Yeah. And what do you feel your students could take away from that to help us all?
I hope they start to think in terms of analogies. As I say, the past doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes.
Yep.
So I think that's the kind of thing I want them to think about. Maybe we can learn something from what happened in the past.
Yeah, and it's fun. You're thinking very heavy topics and geopolitical topics, but the analogy is so important for the feeling economy, for fairness and making arguments, is thinking about, saying this is similar to this. So if you feel this, you're going to feel this over here, and making that analogy and being able to be that conduit between those two concepts. I'm glad you're out there, Professor, fighting the fight. This has been a wonderful conversation. Where can people get your book?
Amazon's a good place, and it's available both in hard copy. It's in paperback. Paperback is how most people buy it, and then there's also the ebook, which is available. I think that's how you were exposed.
Yeah,
to
the audio book from the Amazon service there, which I'm blanking on right now. Audible. I got it on Audible.
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean that'll save some money, because then you aren't using the physical economy.
Yeah, exactly. Are you working on any new books?
No new books at the moment, but we have some ongoing research right now that's very exciting. Besides our Caring machine paper that just came out, we're working on creative AI, how to make AI creative.
And where can we get those? Are those?
Well, you can't get that yet.
Oh.
One thing that Ming-Hui and I have discovered is that sometimes people steal our stuff. And so,
welcome to the argument all the artists are feeling right now. Yeah, exactly.
So we're not sharing things until they're at least accepted for publication.
Understood. So is the Caring machine not?
Turing Machine is out.
Okay, and where can people get that?
That's in the Journal of Marketing, September issue. It's the lead article.
Excellent. All right, Professor. Anything else you want to share before I let you go?
Can't think of anything at the moment. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, this has been a pleasure. Please keep in touch, and thank you very much for joining us.